been around for 25, 30 years.
And they know who to send it to too. They've got their fingers in the community.
Yeah.
Who the best people are. Yeah, that's what I do too.
Yeah. So anyway, he took an X-ray, but just
New
two. I don't think
programs and
he took
features from
well,
Firefox community and
maybe
tips
it went
and
down
tricks.
far enough there was
Other
show or
miscellaneous
something.
tips and tricks and warnings. And,
But I didn't know what to look for.
There's a whole bunch of
Interesting
mishmash of
that
other
they did
stuff. Yeah, there's 2 things about Firefox and 3 things
That's
about
the way to go. Those are
the
solid.
internet and your browser in general and your computer in general.
Okay, you ready, Michael?
Sure.
Can you all take your seats? That wasn't good.
You're not supposed to take your seat that way. You okay?
I'm fine. I got it.
It's all tangled up.
Yeah. Okay, well now you know why I don't stand up for doing this anymore. I have a problem staying up. For those of you who don't know, I had a stroke, so I'm recovering. So I usually stand up front, walk up and down. A year ago I did. Anyway, so if we can all take a seat. Michael, you have a program for today?
I do.
Okay.
It's not, I don't have a cohesive name for it. Let's just call it CIPCUG Tips and Tricks June 2019. How's that for sexy?
Can I pony in when I got a comment?
Of course.
Okay.
Could I stop you?
No.
Probably not. Okay. Hello. How you doing? Everybody's got their... Okay, basically there's a bunch of tips and tricks I wanted to talk about, including some fun features from Firefox that we're going to talk about. But let's start with the dangerous stuff first. Okay, update your Firefox browser now, because there's an update you're going to want to have. Let's go to, yeah. There's an emergency patch for Firefox because there's a 0-day flaw that is being exploited in the wild. Just by going to a certain website, bad things will happen. So, the big thing is, how do you update Firefox? That's easy. Type, open Firefox first of all. It usually, just by restarting it, does it, but you could force it by going to Help and going to About Firefox, and guess what? We're getting the update. Yay. Just wait for it to do it. And what I would recommend is, don't go to any other website until it's done. Just in case. So this is just going to take a few more seconds here, and then we'll restart to update Firefox. Yes. There's a vulnerability that You don't really need to know about the JavaScript and the array.pop, etc., etc. It's just, bottom line, update it. Because that will fix this problem and you won't have to worry about it. It's still finishing. And of course, what I always do is, every time I update something like a browser, I always go and double check, is this, aha, thank you, that I don't have to do anything. It tells me I do have the latest. Okay, so this version of Firefox is now taken care of. I don't have to worry about that vulnerability, and I'm glad there are smart people on the internet who are taking care of this stuff. I just was glad I was able to learn about it in order to double check it. I don't always use Firefox. I use many, many different browsers. And that's why it's important to know if you use many browsers, you want to update them all, even if you don't use them every day, because when you use one, you don't want to start going to certain websites while it's downloading the update until it does it. So this is, and let's triple check. I know it gave me that information there, but if I go to help and I go to about, yep, I can't, there's nothing more I can do. 67.0.4 is all I need to do for this one. Yay, that vulnerability is done. There's a really cool feature that was rolled out by the Mozilla Foundation called Firefox Send. Let's talk about Firefox Send. Actually, is that second? No, let's do the critical warning for, let's do Microsoft. Let's do the bad stuff first. The bad stuff first is critical warning. Government announces critical warning. Blue key. Now see, most of you don't, get away. Most of you don't care about some of this stuff because there's not much you can do about it. But for people like Toby who, there's mail servers on the internet. How many of you have email? Everybody has email. Okay. This is a really interesting thing that according to a June 19 survey, of all the mail servers visible on the internet, 57% of them are running XM. If you are running that, you must update to the latest immediately, because it is being exploited in the wild. It is, the last thing you want is for bad guys to infect your email server. One of the things about bad guys these days, and this is a fascinating thing to me, in the old days there were viruses, yes, but in the 20 years ago, a virus was like, nah, I got you kind of thing. It really wasn't, it was annoying, but it really didn't do anything. It wasn't until the last 10 years, or especially the last 4 or 5 years, where they were trying to weaponize exploits, weaponize viruses, weaponize things in order to do, yes, real damage. The things that we're really, really aware of are things like, of course, ransomware, where they literally lock your computer in. And unless you pay the money, you got to throw your computer away. You cannot use it. Hopefully you have a backup. How many of you have a backup? Yay. How many of you have physically backed up and you know where you know it's working? Yes. How many of you remove the backup from your machine and put it somewhere else? Oh God, yeah, I've seen you're safe. Yeah, talk about, yeah, you are, if anything happens in your house, you're going to be safe. Gosh, it may be a pain to get stuff back up and running, but you know you will get back up and running. So many people I know who come into the shop, you know, saying, well, it wouldn't start today. Can you, rescue all my financial data and all my children's photos? Have you ever backed it up? No. You turn on the computer, it's going clack, 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 clack. It's like, oh, you're just, oh. And how do you break the news to somebody that you've lost everything in your, everything? You just, oh, I know I should have been doing this. It's like, oh, please learn from somebody else's pain so you don't have to learn your own. I guess you could use that in many fields of endeavor, but that's definitely true when it comes to computers, because it's not that hard. Backing up is not that hard. Once you set it up once, not that hard. But, anyway, the reason why I was talking about viruses is ransomware is horrible. But the other thing is, if your computer just starts slowing down, how many of you have a server or work in a place that has a server? Anybody has a server? Yeah, okay, not that many. If the server starts slowing down, the one thing that bad guys are noticing is that servers are being infected because they want to have crypto miners. They want to use the cycles on your computer, or a server's computer especially, a mail server especially, as just mining Bitcoin, mining cryptocurrency, mining something. So we're using the cycles of other people's computers to do our work for us and to make us money. Now that is a kind of interesting thing, because it's not really harmful to your data. They're not trying to read your data. They just want to use your computer. But if your computer's so slow it won't run, that's a problem. And the
they use electricity too.
well, yes, you're paying for the electricity, but your computer, your server's on anyway. It probably uses more if it's under stress. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's not like ransomware. Ransomware is really obvious. You're out of business.
For those of you who don't know, ransomware is where the hacker encrypts your files with a key code. And unless you have the key code, you can't decrypt them. And so all of your data gets locked up. Now, theoretically, you pay them whatever the ransomware is, and they will give you the key code to unlock your files. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
And of course, you're still infected. Because, their software's still on there.
The software is fairly easy to get rid of. I mean, certainly Michael can help you with that. When you get infected, he can get rid of the ransomware code, but he can't get to your data because it's been locked up and he doesn't have the key code.
And as you've heard on the news, places like the city of Baltimore, totally locked down for 3 weeks. They really were. You could not email them. There was no email. You couldn't get records. You had to physically go in person, and even then, it was a pain. And it's just because they didn't have backups in place. And it all started because one secretary somewhere, or somebody, clicked on an email somewhere, and that went throughout the system. The firewalls weren't in place. Everything was not quite right. And all of a sudden, that's all it took. And the bad news about these guys is they're getting really clever. One junk email that, hey, win $50 million, click here, whatever it does, it doesn't look like anything happened when you opened it. You're going, oh, well, that was weird. And you don't think about it, because now that they're in, they stay quiet for a week, 2 weeks, 6 months, to look to see where we can go on your network. Then when they're ready, they pounce. And that's what happened to Baltimore, that's what happened to the Sony pictures, there's so many things that could happen once they get in. We're not sure what happened to Target. How many of you heard about Target last weekend when all their cash registers went down? What really happened? We'll eventually find out. What happened
How about Google went down?
Google went down, yeah.
Yeah. How safe is their mail? They only have half the mail in the world.
But Google went down because of an update patch that was written wrong. And they were trying to update, it was supposed to only update one server and then wait. And unfortunately, it tried to update all the servers at the same time. And because it was updating all the servers at the same time, they couldn't get into the server and say, no, stop the update. They couldn't because it was updating. And so that was an internal problem that at least that's what we believe that happened.
Yeah. That's what they're selling.
That's what they're selling us.
That's
exactly.
the snake oil of the day.
Yeah. And there are, I've started this you've come to CIPCUG many times where you saw a map of the world and lines going all over the place, the cyber threat attack map. There is truly other people and countries that are attacking computers. Absolutely. There is now a virus in the U.S. electric grid right now. We know the name of it. And it hasn't done much yet, but it's there. And every time they go and look at a power company's servers and things, there's another evidence of it. And we're not sure where it's from. Is it from, what's that, Angry Bear or Crazy Bear, which is Russian? Is it North Korean? Some of them are Iranian, or Iraqian. No, Iranian.
Well, it's probably Russian because some of the code is in Russian.
Mm-hmm. Well, but that's not the only one. Things are happening all over the place. One of the problems with the internet being the internet is it can come from anywhere. It can be used by something. One of the things we're talking about this one is BlueKeep. BlueKeep is another huge problem. And BlueKeep is based on code. I just love this story. Okay. So, NSA are good guys trying to fight the bad guys. So they're writing software that can really get the bad guys, or our enemies. So here's a contractor who's working at the NSA, He's got this whole bunch of software, but it's late. So he takes a flash drive, he takes the software he's working on, he goes home with it, plugs it into his laptop at home to work on his stuff. Here's a software that's supposed to attack bad guys. Well, his home computer happens to have Kaspersky on it. Kaspersky antivirus says, wait a minute, that's a bad thing, it's a virus. So it takes a snapshot of that virus, it tries to remove the virus, it sends a copy of that virus to Moscow, its home headquarters. Somehow, I don't know how this happened, Kaspersky Labs Moscow, somehow a piece of that software got out to the Russian government, and now that software, Eternal Blue, is now been used as malware to attack other people and other countries. And it all started from a guy who took work home from work where he wasn't supposed to.
You wonder how come I would say the government having a back door into everything is a disaster.
Yeah. Hey, well, and the big thing is, and the problem is one of the biggest problems, yes, there's been huge problems with I just showed you a list a few minutes ago of the top 10 data releases of our US government releasing data. Everybody who's ever applied to get security clearance, ever, that database got out. Now that includes your name, address, phone number, your social security number, where you've last worked in the last 10 years, all that stuff. Oh, we kind of lost that database. It wasn't secured right, and it was out there. Just kind of, that's kind of bad. What's even worse is, in cases like this, a contractor who works for the company or government, they get hacked. You heard the whole thing about facial recognition. There's a whole thing about facial recognition. I believe it was up north, Washington State. When you're coming into the country, there's cameras that look at your car and your face coming in from Canada, and it took pictures of them. There was one, I believe it was a...
okay, you gonna walk home?
Yeah, a contractor.
Okay. Close the door. I can't stay out here long.
We know. That's okay.
Okay.
So anyway, a contractor who wasn't supposed to, had access to this database. Now the good news is he only had access to one lane, apparently. I don't understand why that was, but so that one lane of traffic, all those pictures, all the facial recognition, all that database was on the contractor's company's computers. That company got hacked. And so now all of that stuff that's supposed to be private, supposed to be secret, it's now out there. Databases in general, collecting stuff in general can be a problem. But definitely, the things that we're finding now is, if you hear the things about, so anyway, Bluekeep. Bluekeep is another one that this is from Department of Homeland Security. If you update now. The good news is if you're running Windows 7 or 10, make sure you do your updates. If your updates don't go through and you have a saying, oh, by the way, we have an update, but it failed, really read what that is. The updates that we're getting on a monthly basis, the second Tuesday of every month, some of them are really important. Some of them you don't care about, but some of them are really important. And you don't want to miss them because your computer will be much more vulnerable moving forward. This whole alert is kind of interesting because by the time it's been talked about, most people, again, Bluekeep is running on port 3389, and it's using the Microsoft Remote Desktop feature. How many of you have ever used Microsoft Remote Desktop? Yeah, not that many people. But it's in, yes. The problem is if you don't have port 3389 closed, this vulnerability will get on your computer just because you're on the internet. You want to get that closed. That's probably a good thing. Matter of fact, the way this is written, you don't have to have a username and password. You don't have to know the admin username and password of the server. You just go on port 3389 with this vulnerability, you're in, as an administrator, with permissions to do anything you want. What could possibly go wrong with that? This is starting to spread. It's starting to be,
Can you check for that?
Yes, I don't have the link here, but there is, mostly just keep doing your Windows updates.
You can go to firewall and block port 3389, UDP and HTML.
Those are biggies.
Go to Windows Firewall and block port 3389, and you want to do it for both halves, the UDP and the HTML. They're two.
Will those updates do that for you?
No. No, because before Eternal Blue, 3389 was the way you would communicate with the computer. That was the default setup for remote desktop.
So if that's blocked, what do you use?
You can go into the registry and you can tell remote desktop to use a different port. And then you open up that port in the firewall. What do you want me to say?
Do any of these issues apply to Windows 7?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, they apply to Windows 3.
Yes. Yes, RDP was in, yeah, Windows 3, yeah, all the way up through, yes, absolutely. And that's why it's really crucial that, again, you, number one, get off those really old computers. One of the problems was there's a bunch of, there's a search engine called Shodan. Shodan is a very interesting search engine because it searches the entire internet for things like vulnerabilities or these port scans or that sort of thing. And you can immediately find a IP camera that is now vulnerable to this because it searches, it sniffs, it sees, and here's a list of every vulnerability. Here's a list of all these things. And it's scary, but it's not that hard to scan the entire internet for one specific thing, this certain port on any computer connected to the internet. Is this port open? Yes, no. Okay, here's the list. There's lots of problems with, especially a lot of, as they say, computers in a closet that no one has touched in 10 years, but it's a Windows 2000 computer that's serving email, or it's doing this, or it's doing that. If nobody's physically been to that machine, it probably hasn't been updated, probably hasn't been fixed. It's one of those things. There may not be automatic updates for Windows 2000 that every second Tuesday of the month is updating because that's no longer in service. It's no longer
out of service.
Long end of life. However, even though it's been end of life by Microsoft, it's not. People are still using them, and this is a problem. It's those kind of things. Back when we were having the problem with the British medical department of all of the British Isles was being slammed because a lot of their old machines were running Windows XP. But it's the Windows XP software that's running an MRI machine. Some of those are really hard to update.
Black boxes on airplanes all run Windows 2000. It's the only one that's been approved for black box use. They approved it, I guess, budget cuts or whatever. They're still stuck with it.
My brother-in-law, who's a retired naval captain, who's now, of course, a consultant for the U.S. Navy, was telling me that there's a lot of naval ships that it's not been approved yet to run Windows 7. They're still on Windows 2000 or Windows XP because it hasn't been approved yet to go to a newer version for the ship to be running. It's that. Now, that was a few years ago when I talked to him, but still, it's because it takes a while to vet all the everything.
Some of the older cruise missiles are still running CPM.
Oh, but my favorite is, okay, hold on. It's the subway. I gotta get this in New York. I gotta show you this article. It's so cool. To this day, do you know what software is running the the subway system in New York City? Where do we find it? OS 2. I just think it's hilarious. Oh, where do we go? Here we go. Click. How many of you remember OS 2? There you go. There you go. Well, see, I don't think there's a lot of virus writers writing hacks for OS 2. There probably might be, but not many. So this is probably much more secure than a lot of other things. But that is still the operating system of the New York subway system, that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
3.5 diskettes.
There you go. That's it. There you go.
And it isn't running on the latest hardware.
it's kind of interesting. So that's the MTA
Yeah,
stuff.
that's a problem. I tried to get CPM running on the latest hardware a long time ago, and I couldn't. Drivers for the motherboard didn't exist.
Yeah, there's an issue. But anyway, the issue is, if you've got an old machine that you really are, I don't think any of you do have an old machine running in the closet for one purpose. No, you'd probably turned it off by now. But there are people who do. It's just doing this one thing, but as long as it's connected to the internet, it can be vulnerable. Really, really important. But let's talk about the good news. Yay, the good news. Let's talk about the fun parts. Last month, Firefox Send was introduced. Have anybody ever heard of Firefox Send? They didn't do a lot of advertisement. Mozilla doesn't have that big advertising agency running for them, but it's a really, really cool thing. Now, what is Firefox Send? Okay, I want to share a video file with Toby. It's of something that he cares about, I care about, but it's much too big. How many of you send attachments in email? Anybody? There you go. How many of you realize there are some files that are too big to send an email? Yeah, exactly. Is it 15 megabytes? It's 15 megabytes, 15 megabytes. There are some photographs that maybe, not my camera, but there's some cameras that just one photograph that's too big. But if you want to send a file, music files, perfect example. I have, the music that he needs to hear, or I got a piece of software, a piece of his mother-in-law's music that I've got an MP3 of, and I want to send it to him, but it's bigger than 15 megabytes. There's many ways of doing this already. Some people have already used, you can use Google Drive, you could use OneDrive, you could use Microsoft, you could use Dropbox. This is a really cool thing. This is Firefox Send. Now you can send 1 gigabyte, up to 1 gigabyte, just by dragging my file to this. It uploads it to the server, sends it to him, then erases it. It has no idea who I am, it has no idea who he is, it just sends it. And it's a cool new feature from Firefox. Now, if you sign into Firefox and you have an account with Firefox, you can send up to 2.5 gigabytes. And it's really kind of cool because it's not like Dropbox where it's sitting somewhere on a server. No, it's a one-time thing. I want it to go to him. That's it. He gets it, he receives it, it's gone. It's kind of a really cool service because it was solving a need that people in the Mozilla Foundation Firefox have been using. Yeah?
WeTransfer does that real well too.
Yeah, okay. But I've heard of, there are other companies that do similar things, but Firefox is it's kind of an interesting thing. Is there a limit on what the sizes are that we send?
Well, they start at 2.
They start at 2 gigabytes?
Create a account that gives you more.
Okay. But it's an interesting kind of thing that I thought was kind of fun for those who want to, especially, and I'm sorry that Andy's not here because he's talking about the music and all of his files, as we saw last month. They're pretty big files because he does them at high quality. He wants high quality copies of his music. Those are not really easy.
Does the recipient have to have microphone?
I don't think so. That's the thing. Let me try to remember how I did this. I did this once. Select files to upload. Okay. Let me send him something. There you go. Yes. Yes. That's too small, but that's okay. I will say expire. And here, once I do it, I can say it expires after 1 download or 1 day. So it'll disappear after he downloads it, or he downloads it twice or 100. It's a kind of interesting features. Or after 1 day, after 5 minutes. So I know he's going to be there. I know it's only going to be this, however I want it. I'm going to say 1 hour. Upload. And now all I do is, and here's the fun part, I don't send him, I don't tell Firefox his address. I literally send him this URL, this really long link. I send him that, it's encrypted, so Firefox doesn't know what it is. It's encrypted. It's encrypted locally on my machine. And I say, okay, I send it to him. He gets this link, he clicks it, because we've already talked, he knows it's coming. He clicks it, he receives it. I think it's a really cool feature.
It's a URL, he can get in any browser.
Yeah. So, no, he doesn't have to have an account. That's the answer.
Except links.
So he doesn't have to have an account with Firefox. He doesn't have to know that I'm using this at Firefox send thing. All he knows is we've talked, he's going to receive a link from me, he clicks on the link, he downloads it, and the whole thing gets erased from the internet. It's on my machine, it's on his machine, it's done. I thought that was a cool thing that is, for certain people who want to share files, it's kind of a fun thing to play with. Now the other thing that just happened this last week is really cool, and this is for me more than anybody else. It's a thing called Firefox Screenshot Go. And now Firefox Screenshot Go is for your Android phone. Now why do you want this? Well, this is a cool thing because sometimes I'm teaching a class here, or we're talking about phones, and I want to show my phone up here on the screen, and I can't. Well, how many of you know that you can take a screenshot with your phone? Just by holding, yeah, you do it probably, yeah. The home button and the power button, it clicks and it takes a screenshot. You can save that in your photos, now it's a photo, you can do what you want with it. And so I can explain that, for instance, when I'm doing, I'm sorry, this one, I want this one first. Okay, so if I swipe down on my phone, it looks like this. I swipe down and I have a bunch of information, et cetera. I know my phone is turned off. I got my cell phone volume turned off. I am on Wi-Fi. I'm not on Bluetooth. If I swipe down twice, I get this, because that's the thing that I didn't realize until I was working with Android. Android version, whatever version I've got now, has this whole thing built into it called Flashlight. I don't need to have a Flashlight app. All I need to do is swipe down, enter, and I have a flashlight. I don't have to have it, because the problem is flashlight apps were notoriously full of spyware. And they were free, and they did what you want, but now Android just built it into the operating system, so you don't have to worry about a separate app to do it. Apple does the same thing? Yeah, okay. You swipe, and turn on your flashlight. And it's really easy, because in the dark, usually that's when you want a flashlight, because it's dark. Swipe, go. And that's really all you got to do. You don't have to worry about finding the right icon. It's really kind of fun.
Now is home and power together?
Oh, to take a picture? The home key and the power key, yes. And what's going to happen, you can't see my thing, but I hold it together, and the whole thing goes, and the whole thing vibrates, so you know it took. Same with the iPhone, yeah. But then using those pictures, especially when you're trying to explain to somebody. We all have friends who don't get technology, who don't get their phone, who are just graduating from their first flip phone into one of these. Sometimes you need to visually explain it to them because they don't get it. And this is a really cool program. I should actually take a picture of the program. There you go, and I can email it to myself. And I can show you the program itself. If you go to the Google Play Store, it says unreleased. So it's a beta, it's unreleased, it's kind of new, but it is kind of fun to let you not only manipulate the screenshot you just took, but you could also, where are we? Go. It's under screenshot for S. S for screenshot go. Yes, and it has every screenshot I've ever taken. And there you go. And then you can, when you click on it, there's the share button they have on Google, which is 3 dots in a triangle. You click on that, and it opens up there you go, link share. You can send it as an email, send it as a text, and you can do what you want with the picture you've just taken. It's kind of a really cool thing that I just heard about. It's one of how many of you have an Android phone? How many of you want to know more about Android? There's a weekly podcast called All About Android. And at the end of the episode every week, the 3 or 4 people who are on the podcast that week, they all have what's called the Android Arena. And they have their favorite app of the week. And people vote. And every week there's a winner. Well, the fun part about it is, let's take that up there. They've been going for a while, so if I do All About Android, yes. Go away. They're on episode 425. So 425 times at least 3 apps a week. There's a lot of apps out there that they've talked about. And every week there's a different, matter of fact, I'm 3 weeks behind myself. But there's you can see what the apps are. Here's links to and the poll. Here's you go. Where people see, they get to vote which was the best of the week. And so they have, somebody has I'll put the link in the toe, about a certain website that has, these are the winners of all 425 weeks of the episode of the show. And what episode, and again, there's so many categories. There's games, there's apps, there's tools, there's launchers. How many of you changed your launcher on your phone? You're really geeky, you can change your launcher. Changing your launcher is like not only changing your wallpaper, but it's changing the interface, the user. It's kind of like going from Windows 7 to Windows 8 to Windows 10. The whole interface, it changes when you change your launcher. Again, it's one thing you can't do on an iPhone.
The guys on ZDNet, almost all of them, have gone to the Microsoft
launcher. Yeah, sure. Yep.
You can take it as a recommendation if you want.
Well, the fun part about launchers is you can try it just for today, then swipe it off and try something else. I like the Google launcher because of my Gmail and it gives the notifications, but the Microsoft launcher has other features that are kind of really cool.
Yeah, like built-in integration with Office.
And of course, the Office for phone is free, so you have, you can download Word for, I don't know if you want to type a Word document on your phone, but you can. You can download that, and it works really well.
Cloud.
And it saves in the cloud, right? Yeah.
Runs in the cloud.
Yep.
I thought Microsoft phones were going out.
No, the phone is, yes, but there's, see the one thing here, I should go back to, where's this picture I had from the beginning that has the,
Let me jump in here. Microsoft went out of the phone business, and they now are making add-ons to Android. They have in the Google store, they have 100 and something Microsoft products that you can add to your phone. One of them is the Microsoft Launcher. If you are tied into Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, whatever, Microsoft products with your home computer, and you want to make it fairly seamless, integrating with your phone, you can use the Microsoft Launcher, tie in the accounts, and you can go on. Incidentally, you mentioned the Microsoft phone. I happen to have a Microsoft phone, and of course, I don't need all this folderol that he has. I can just plug in a USB cable and project my phone to the screen automatically because I have Miracast. So, hooray for old technology.
Yeah, too bad they canceled it. But I just wanted to show this again. This is the stock price of Microsoft. One of the things they did when they introduced Windows, when they said Windows 10 is the last version of Windows. Yes, period. There's not going to be another Windows 11. If you have any existing Windows, legal Windows 7 or 8 or 8.1, you can upgrade for free to Windows 10. They also said Microsoft Office, we're going to have running on everything, on your phone, on Macs, maybe on Linux soon. Well, and of course the interesting thing for Linux lovers is the newest versions of Windows 10 have Linux built into them. You can actually have a Linux shell in Windows 10. So they're really getting, so yes, the answer is your phone can run Microsoft Word. Yes, yes it can. And of course OneNote is free.
And it runs.
And it runs on Mac, on PCs.
On Windows Phone.
On Windows Phone, or on Android phone, which is what most people have, is an Android phone.
Windows Phone.
Yeah, but I'm not sure, but there's some new things that won't run on Windows Phone because they've been invented after Windows Phone got discontinued. So it depends on, yes, there are so many features that you can do with Microsoft on Android. But it's because Satya Nadella is brilliant that he was able to get that whole team working.
Just so you know, this line here is when Ballmer left Microsoft and Nadella.
It's actually 14. Yeah, it was right there. Yeah, right that big bump right there. Yeah, you go. Yeah, when
right there.
Steve Ballmer left and Satya Nadella.
Ballmer left and Nadella came in.
Amazing. Ironically, this was in the middle of the antitrust suit. Yeah, so it's a lot of stuff happened during the the U.S. government against Microsoft antitrust lawsuit. that was interesting time in their
It
history.
seems odd that their stock price would go up during major litigation.
Well, there's, don't ask me about the stock market. Why things happen the way they do is kind of interesting. People were gambling. They thinking that maybe I think one of the things was, Toby knows a lot more about this, but if the government forces to break up Microsoft and you buy now with one share of Microsoft, it becomes 3 companies. Do you have stock in 3 companies? I think that could have been is that right? Yeah. That could have been why this bump is here. People were gambling that what is bad for Microsoft is good for me in the long run, because if I buy now is low, and it'll go up higher later. But, yeah, anyway, that was that. Let me go back to my outline.
Revisit the double swipe and the... Could you briefly revisit the double swipe and the flashlight?
Oh, yeah. You have a phone?
Right here.
Okay. On your phone, swipe down with me. What happens if you swipe down?
Well,
Once.
Do I have to key in first?
Oh, unlock it, yeah, unlock it.
Okay.
Unlock it. Swipe down once, swipe down twice. Do you see the word flashlight? Flashlight. Mine says flashlight on the second row. Actually, I can show you exactly what mine looks like, because I just took a picture of it. If I did, here we go. If I swipe down twice, this is what I see. And the word flashlight is right here.
Do you have the latest
I
Android?
don't have the latest. I have an S7, so I don't think I have the latest Android. But does yours look like this? Do you have wireless in the corner, sound, Bluetooth across the top?
I've seen that screen before, but that's not.
That's not what you're getting?
It just taught me something new that.
Oh, you have something else you're getting. So
Yes.
you swipe down once, swipe down 3 times. I don't know what happens if you swipe down 3 times.
All right.
Mine doesn't do anything. I can only swipe down once, and then twice it gives me these. No, yours doesn't do that. Okay. Well, that's just... Everybody's got their phone up. Oh, your light's on. You gotta remember to turn it off. That's the problem.
I just got rid of my flashlight app.
Yeah, there you go. See, yeah, you don't need one. If that's all you used it for, you don't need the flashlight app. Absolutely. Anyway, everyone's playing with their phones.
Yeah.
But it's learning something new is kind of why we come to the club. Anyway, the only other things I had left were just other fun tips and tricks I got over the month by listening to, visiting websites we visit all the time for tips and tricks, and podcasts I listen to. How many of you like watching movies and things on your TV or your streaming box, but you don't want to pay for Netflix? There are many alternatives now. Here's, is it CNET? CNET's top 10 alternatives to Netflix, some of which are free. I guess they're all free. And, they're not the latest movies, of course, but because you can only get those by paying for them. But some of them you may have heard of. If you've played with your Roku box, you may have heard of things like Crackle, and here we go. Crackle, you may have heard of IMDb TV, which I want to check out when I get home. I've used the website IMDb a lot. And interesting, they have movies there. Hoopla, I've heard of. The Internet Archive is really kind of cool. The Internet Archive has movies that are, I guess they're not in public domain. I guess they are in public domain. But so yeah, they are public domain movies. And it's amazing how many, the one thing I wish, you've heard me talk about this enough. You don't hear me talk about it again. But I think the US copyright system is broken. The patent system is broken. Originally, when it was designed, you invent something, great. You can patent it or copyright it, absolutely, for a limited time. Then it goes into the public domain so the public can use it, adjust it, work with it, do whatever they want with it. That's been broken, and so people are holding on to, the creators are holding on, especially Disney, where they don't want to let it go. It used to be, 10 years. Then it turned to be the author's lifetime. Then it was, now, of course, Walt Disney's dead. Everything he invented, it's his lifetime plus. And every time it comes up for renewal, son of a gun, somebody in Congress says, let's extend it even more, just so the mouse will never be in public domain. just let the thing go, because you're also stifling everything else that should be in public domain, that people can play with, create with, invent something new based on work that you did, yes, but the patent should have expired by now. Anyway, this is...
No, that is copyright, that's not patent.
Well, I'm talking about patent as well, because both are broken. But the Internet Archive is public domain. The public domain movies, and there's also public domain. The other thing I've talked about a million times was the Gutenberg Project, which is public domain books. And it's all those books that are out of copyright, which are now all of Mark Twain, all of Tarzan, Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Everything you would consider a classic, old classic, is in, is in there, plus stuff that isn't classic. Just crap.
Well, there's also, the fun part about the Gutenberg Project, for those of you who speak many languages, they've now expanded. You now have so many hundreds of thousands of titles from other languages. So you want to read, especially, an old French novel. How about the Hunchback of Notre Dame? Or Les Mis in French, if you want to read it that way. There you go. It's one of those things.
Any of you know the history of fiction?
Of what?
Of fiction. Fiction didn't exist until the 1700s. And I forget what the first book was in England. The first book that purported to be fiction. And then the second book was a book called Pamela. And you can get that on Gutenberg Press. The third book was a book called Shamala, which was a parody of Pamela because they thought it was so silly. You can get that on Gutenberg. So all of the early books, they don't have, before they had epic poems that were probably fictitious or partly fictitious.
Oh, the Iliad.
The Iliad and that sort of thing. Gilgamesh before that.
Right.
But the first book that was published that was openly and avowed not the truth was English in the 17th century. So, or 8th. No. It was English. But anyway, just so you know, that was the history of the literature. But you can get all that. You can go back in literature or history for, pretty much all of it.
Oh, yeah.
In the Gutenberg Press, because that's all expired. But the problem is, some of the books that are modern and should have gone into public domain have been extended and they're now still copyrighted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, curious, the document, or maybe, I don't know, the document, or you're searching the web for where you're going to go, is that going to be put in some form of a handout to John to put in the tow so we can, at least go through what we couldn't follow as the screens were flashing past?
This will, like the tips and tricks.
Stick it on Facebook.
Well, he wants it in the tow.
Well, but if he puts it on Facebook, John cruises the tow every day practically.
But I email him all the time, and he has to email me the.
But everybody can get it in Facebook.
Except those who do not have Facebook.
Exactly,
Thank you.
and everybody will get it in the tow. I just want to make sure he gets in the tow.
It will be in the tow because John will see it and put it in the tow. So putting it in Facebook gets it to everybody, including John and including the tow. Emailing it to John just gets it in tow in 2 weeks. That's it. Nobody else gets it right away.
Thank you.
Yeah, isn't Facebook now in the tow next month?
It'll be the tow for the June tow.
Is it the page you're talking about, or was it a website?
Maybe the website. You go through all kinds of different. I saw Roku run by and several.
Oh yes, I was basically these are links.
Was that a PDF file or was that actually a web?
This is a link. See this link?
Yeah.
TheVerge.com. And so on The Verge, it was the 10 best services for free movies. As Toby started talking, I was in the middle of talking.
Yeah, I can't read that fast. No problem.
Exactly. So, but it started with Crackle, After Crackle was IMDb. After IMDb was Hoopla, which I've never heard of before.
And that link will be Facebook to John to put in the tote.
Right.
Google
Yeah.
10 best free movie sites.
Yes, I can email, yes, yeah. Then Canopy, and then Pluto TV,
He doesn't like Facebook at
and then
all.
Roku. The Roku channel, actually, Roku has its own channel, those of you who have a Roku box, and it's kind of fun. That's interesting, because it's not really a free movie provider, but an aggregator of new and existing no-cost content. So, therefore, it's not hosting its own, it's kind of linking to movies that are free. So it's kind of fun. So you load the one channel on your box, but it takes you to Popcorn Flicks or Vidmark or FilmRise, and you can get to see Tobey Maguire, if you want, or Conan the Barbarian, there you go, Terminator. Tubi TV is another one. Vudu is a new service that's really taking off. It's actually from Walmart. So you can actually buy movies through Vudu, V-U-D-U. YouTube. Now YouTube service is interesting. Probably nobody is ready for YouTube Red or YouTube TV. But if you're a cord cutter, you may be interested in it. You were talking about being cord cutter. YouTube TV, you pay for, YouTube TV will let you see live channels, live local channels. Yeah, but you gotta double check because it depends on your area code. All these restrictions, there's lawyers involved, and you're only allowed to see certain things in certain places.
The cable providers all reported record earnings, but hidden in the record earnings was the people who subscribed to the cable was going down every month. But the people who subscribed to internet only was going up faster. And so they had a gain for the month. What that means is people are increasingly cord cutting. And when they cord cut a little bit more, suddenly the cable companies are going to figure out, this is a losing proposition. Wow. We don't need to pay all of these companies. We can just cut our cable business and just provide internet, and you can go get whatever you want. And that's how it's going to work. But in order to get the local TV in your area, you're going to have to go to somebody who has a license for the local cable companies or local TV companies. If you want to do something else, you're going to pay incremental for the stuff that you're getting on your cable company. They have the A tier and the B tier and the C tier or whatever. Yeah. They have it segmented. You're going to be in that business, only you're just subscribing to whatever you want to. And whenever you want to, you can terminate them and subscribe to somebody else. YouTube suddenly comes out with Game of Thrones, and you got to be in it like everybody else. So you get rid of Netflix and you get HBO. HBO is going to be forced to sell their service to the public. So the cord cutters will subscribe to HBO, or they will subscribe Amazon Prime. You get your free whatever. But you're going to pay the same amount of money, probably. Most people in this room will pay the same amount of money, but they'll be paying it to different providers. And then they just get their internet from Spectrum or whomever. But Spectrum won't be in the cable business in a few years. So it's clear that in the next probably 2 years, it'll pay you to cord cut. I don't know exactly when the crossover is going to come. Michael is a cord cutter, but he doesn't get real time.
No, my wife won't let me. In the bedroom, I'm a cord cutter.
Oh,
but in the front room, in the living room, we still have the regular DirecTV. However, I'm in the bedroom where I watch. I'm watching Amazon Prime, Netflix. I do have Hulu. That's the one. If I'm going to cut one, I'm going to cut a Hulu. Although I can't now that Handmaid's Tale come out. How many have watched Handmaid's Tale? Season 3. Oh my gosh, it is good. Or even Catch-22. How many of you remember the book or the old movie Catch-22? There's a new series out with oh golly, the other reason why my wife wants the one time I can watch a TV with my wife, it's because of shoot, what's his name? He just married. Let's Google it, Michael. There you go. What am I thinking of? There you go. Catch-22. Catch-22.
Anyway,
There you go. That's it. Oh.
you're going to be you're going to want a cord cut. Probably not now, but in a couple of years. We'll get to the place where you can get all the LA stations in real time on
George Clooney.
George Clooney.
Sorry, yes. So she doesn't mind watching Hulu if George Clooney's on it. So it's one of those things that, kind of works. Yeah, George Clooney, yeah. He's hilarious. And the fun part about Hulu is kind of like if you're doing stop. If you're doing a TV show for a channel like Amazon Prime, Hulu, or even Netflix, you get around censors. I mean, do we still have censors in TV anymore? I'm just really wondering about that because I guess, I guess you do, because you can do things on HBO and Showtime that you're not allowed to do on regular network channels. So must be some FCC rules about standards but you get around those when you're on something that's not the regular channels. So yeah, it's the language is World War II language that you probably would have heard actually on the Air Force, Army Air Corps base where they start. But it's fun. It's very funny, and they did a lot of work. I love the filter too because it looks like it was filmed in the 40s. They have a tint to it that really really makes it real fun to watch. But so any questions before we go to the raffle?
We've got time for one more question, two more questions.
Screenshots, still doing screenshots. I know, it's a cool feature. Sometimes you want to take a picture of something that comes up on your phone. Especially error messages, if you want to bring up to the club, or you want to send it to
send them to Michael, because I'm still using Windows Phone. I can't help you.
No, but if you have a question for his podcast, you can take a screenshot with your phone, and send him the picture. Although it's a phone,
we're trying to send each other spam.
You don't want to answer phone questions on your podcast. So, but if you did, he'd be able to.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Even if it's an Android question. But
I'll do Android questions if I can come up with the answer.
There you go.
My wife has an Android phone. I can steal it.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Go
ahead.
So, I've been running into a problem with YouTube using Firefox.
Okay.
And when I try to switch an account or load the studio, it goes into a load mode of some kind. It says loading studio, and it'll sit there for half an hour. So
I
don't have that problem with my Firefox.
Do you try a different browser and does the same thing?
Oh no, go to Chrome and it's immediate.
What extensions do you have on Firefox you don't have on Chrome?
That's what I need to know. What kind of an extension would cause that problem? Because
look at your two. Open up both browsers and see what extensions you have.
You block Origin, maybe?
No, I don't have that.
Okay.
Block autoplay.
So there's an extension that would be causing.
You can turn off but not uninstall an extension.
Absolutely.
And find out which one it is,
okay.
and then re-enable the others.
I have this one called Disable Autoplay.
That's what I need to know. Thanks.
And if it's Disable Autoplay, that would be a problem if I want to watch a video. So I have to turn that off. I have to turn off Disable Autoplay.
Yeah, if you get stuff that's happening on your browser or whatever, and it happens only in one browser and not in the other, almost always it's an extension, something you've added on.
Some people I know actually have different browsers for different things. They only go to YouTube in Vivaldi or Brave or whatever. They only use, their email is Chrome because they use a Gmail account, or they only use whatever. Nothing wrong with that. You want to do it that way? Go for it.
Yeah,
Make it cleaner.
I use 3 browsers, open all the time, and I just use each browser for a certain thing.
And your wife has what, 20 tabs open on?
You've
Oh
seen
my
my
God.
wife's computer.
Oh my gosh.